in terms of the breathe right strip, if you will, California Chrome kind of made it in vogue earlier this year. So what's your take on not only putting it in the form, but just if it will enhance the performance of the racehorse?
Well, I think it all comes back to I'll have another. I think he was the one that really kind of kicked it back and brought it relevant. The nasal strips have been out for a number of years now. In fact, the coach Dwayne Lucas was the one that had actually originally put the flare strips on horses. This is going back several years, but then it went dormant at obviously the owner, the inventor of it. It's much like the breathe right strip for us humans. You're a svelte guy. You're obviously young. I've got a deviated septum. This goes back when I was 5 years old. I'm a big guy. Mm-hmm. So you can imagine that most big guys snore. And my wife seems to think that I have sleep apnea, but I never generally wake up all that tired. So I think I'm getting plenty of rest at night. But the point being told is that the breathe right strip or the nasal strip, I do feel that they definitely allow a horse to get the optimum of their breathing, because inside the nasal cavity, for example, some horses inside their nasal cavity, they actually have a little more of skin, so to speak. And sometimes when you hear horses gallop by in the mornings, you hear them making like a That's not a breathing problem when it's consistent. So essentially what happens with the breathe right strip, it'll actually pull that nasal cavity and allow the horse to get the optimum air. So when they go by you, they don't stress to get the air, inhale and exhale. So in other words, they said that the breathe right strips, the flare nasal strip, has actually helped horses and kind of essentially enable them to not bleed quite as frequently. So bleeders, yes. Horses with breathing problems, I'm not sure it necessarily helps that cause, but certainly helps me sleep better at night.
Interestingly enough, and you were talking about the fact that you're on limited rest, getting up early in the morning. And right at this point in our hard day's night, we're coming up, let's just go and revisit it. Starting at 6 a.m., getting up to the trying to nap stage. How's that work out for you? With you've already had a long morning, now you're trying to kind of lay down and switch leads there in the middle part of the day?
Well, I'm more of a military nap guy. You know what a military nap is?
Quick?
No, well, yeah, absolutely. But when you lay flat on the floor, you put a spoon in each hand, and you fall asleep. When the spoon hits the ground, then it'll wake you up, and essentially that's a military nap. So that's basically my idea of a nap, because if I doze off in the afternoon and I get like an hour and a half for whatever reason, no bueno. But for trainers, they really don't have that much of an opportunity to get a nap. But say, for example, trainers here in Southern California, namely guys like Jerry Hollendorfer, who have 100-plus horses, trainer Pete Miller, they're always on the go. And especially when you have children, I know Pete Miller welcoming in another member of the family, you're always on go. And especially now with cell phones and the ability for your clients to call you at any part of the day. I remember working with Craig DeLasse back in the day. He actually made it known to his clients, don't call me between the hours of 6 and 10 a.m. in the morning, unless it's an emergency.
Yeah.
So, yeah, you try and get a nap in, a little power nap, if you will. And the whole idea is to stay hydrated.
Yeah, I actually mastered the art of the afternoon nap in college, but that was more of having free time than just being lazy. But I do want to ask you, can we actually, we're taking a look at 3:30 as it's time for afternoon feed, and we still got to figure out where that staff is. But I do want to ask you a serious question, though.
It all depends on when payday was.
I do want to ask you a serious question about one of the ones that we saw earlier. That's talking to the owners, and that's something that I don't think that the handicappers or even a lot of people that are involved in the game realize. And I'm sure it's got to be really challenging. I mean, you got owners that they get the game, they understand it, but I think it's got to be tough when you have an owner. They all want to win, but the reality of the game, I always say, you're looking at 1 success to 4 failures. If you're good at what you do, if you're a trainer or a handicap, you're at about 20%. So how hard is it to explain to the owners and the connections, okay, we didn't run a good race, or sometimes you have those well-beaten races. How tough is that to jump on the phone and explain a bad performance?
Well, one thing I've actually come to learn, I learned as a trainer was I try not to call in the heat of the moment just after a race, unless, of course, it's an emergency, a horse pulls up bad, or, for example, I want the owner to talk to the jockey because I don't want the owner to just assume that, oh, that's an excuse you made up. What about the rider? Sometimes it's good for the rider to talk to the owner directly after the race. One of my pet peeves, I will say, though, in that, I don't like seeing when a horse wins, trainer on the cell phone, talking on the cell phone in the winner's circle. To me, that's tacky. That's a no-no. You can wait till after the picture's taken. Don't take away from the horse's performance and the groom that has taken care of that horse in the ride that rider put on that particular horse. I think the cell phone takes away from all that. So the whole idea, if you've seen by that ledger and you saw the blue plate special on the bottom there with the family, it really depends on how you're doing in the scheme of things. But truth be told, it's routine, and it's trying to perfect that routine and having a game plan. And each and every day, if you write things down, so much easier than to try and remember things. It's very important to have a plan of attack. And you talk about back of the barn for afternoon feed time. See how those horses ate up in the morning.
Yeah,
maybe
true.
you had a horse that worked out, had a hard work in the morning. If he ate up all of his grain, it's generally a good sign. And again, you're checking temps, and hopefully you can find where your staff is hiding.
And don't forget about that blue plate special turkey and gravy on the menu today.